So you've been covering video games for almost 2 decades. How do you feel about how games and gaming in general has evolved during your time covering them?
Uh, the games business has really kind of, it used to be a business about getting a gaming machine, whether that's a PC or a console, and then buying dedicated software for it. Like you're buying a cartridge or you're buying a CD or something to that effect, and then, uh, but the business is now, it's moved a lot toward digital distributions, and gaming has become smaller. Now you get much simpler games in mobile. So it's kind of funny because it used to start off as really simple games, and then they got kind of complicated with the evolution of graphics and 3D technology, and then now it's back to being small and simple again because we're playing on smaller devices. And it's been really interesting covering this stuff because when I first started in the business, it used to be print for journalism, right? Everyone used to get Electronic Gaming Monthly or another magazine, and you get that once a month, and that's how you would learn about video games because this was really pre-internet days. And then you're kind of quiet for 29 days, then you get the magazine. Now you get a bunch of information all at once, and that was kind of cool. But nowadays, there's just so many ways for you to get your information or your news, your previews, your reviews, whatever you need, whether it's like a small, how do I get past this part in this game? Or is this game any good? Or how much does this game cost? Or how many players can be in this game? All of that stuff is just readily available to you all the time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Like both in terms of the games industry and the games journalism industry, both have really changed over the last 2 decades.
Definitely agree. I guess how do you feel like it's better now with more publications being online that people who are out here reading this stuff can just directly go to, say, you written article that people don't agree with, they can just go on Twitter and, give you hell for it or say, yeah, that was a great article. Do you feel that that's better or worse for?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's a tough question because um, the way it's ultimately, I think everything that we're seeing online is good, right? You have immediate access to information. You have multiple resources at your disposal, so you're not just dependent on your one magazine once a month. So I think that's ultimately a good thing. Um, readers being able to get in touch with us, that's a good thing too, because uh, we're not infallible, and there's going to be situations where the press maybe gets something wrong, or they forget something, or they got, just even if it's a little fact, and then it's great to kind of have that exposure to the audience who can correct those things. Can say, but you were wrong here, or maybe you missed a point here, or you forgot about this thing. And we've seen that before, where we're like, that's a good point. Let's update and correct the article. That's stuff that was impossible during the print days. Now I'm talking about people with legitimate feedback, right? Like if you read a story of mine and I did get a fact wrong or I missed an important point, then that's great. Of course, there's also the people who will argue with you and get pissed at you because they don't agree with what you said. That's a whole nother story. And that's the bad part about the quote unquote internet side, the internet evolution in this equation, right? Because now this also gives a voice to everyone, and I feel like that part has gotten worse with social media because I actually tweeted this out the other day that um, Twitter and social media as a whole has turned the whole world into one giant message board, right? Like now like we used to complain about message boards, right? Because that's where people will go and bitch and whine, and it's just like sort of the dregs of the internet because that's where everyone would just go and complain. And now everything is a message board, right? Because of Twitter, you can talk to, whether it's like a movie actor or a games journalist or an athlete. Everyone's now accessible, and you can bitch to everyone directly, and everyone has an opinion. So now you get a lot more of that sort of stuff, that negativity and the complaining, and the people who are arguing with you not because of facts, which is I agree those things should be addressed, but because of opinion, and they just can't see it your way, and they're just so set in their ways that they get pissed at you for not conforming to their opinions, So that part I really can't stand. And that's the part about the old days that I kind of miss actually, which is we were somewhat insulated from that, right? It's like, maybe there was a lot of people who didn't agree with our reviews, but one, you didn't really hear it because they couldn't reach you other than writing a letter in. Two, they all couldn't band together and commiserate together to gang up on you. It's like, how dare they give uh, whatever game a 9.5 instead of a 10? You didn't get that sort of stuff back in the print days, really, until the internet sort of came around. Um, but overall, like I'm on the internet, and I like having immediate access to anything I need. That part of this is great. The other kind of drawback to all of this is the speed and immediacy that the internet requires is bad for journalism. I think it's bad for writing because um, we all would love to think like, yeah, the writing quality is important, grammar is important, getting your facts straight, that's important, and it is. But ultimately, the readers are the ones who kind of dictate how we do business, and the readers have made it clear faster is better, even if you get it wrong, right? Like, and I'm not saying we do this. I'm not saying we hey, we're allowed to be wrong because the readers don't care. But it's very disheartening to see that. Okay, uh, even if you get something wrong, and again, we've made mistakes. I'm not trying to uh, get on a soapbox and kind of make it sound like, oh, we do no wrong, but ultimately you're rewarded for being first uh, rather than having the best quality reporting. And again, the readers dictate that, right? Because they reward you with clicks and page views, and that's how you survive as a business is
Right.
clicks and page views. So yeah, ultimately that's what the readers want, and that leads to lower quality of writing and reporting.
Right. I had another question that was kind of in that I wanted to roll in. Where'd it go? No, I'm sure we'll come back to it later. um, with so many options for developers, with free to play, virtual reality, the 3D gimmick, episodic tales, mobile, where do you see the industry going forward?
I definitely think that the industry is moving toward mobile. It's just a huge uh, opportunity for a lot of developers because you think about this, like consoles are still big business. PC gaming can still be big business, and that's where a lot of the big money is. And consoles are not going away anytime soon. But a lot of that business has consolidated because you're talking about, in the old days, there are a lot of people making games, AAA games, non AAA games, B tier, C tier games, because that was the entire industry. Everything was on consoles or PCs. Um, but it's a big risk. You're talking about teams of like 100, 200 people. I don't know how many man hours, millions of dollars, and maybe 2 years worth of work. And then all of a sudden, your game doesn't sell that well for whatever reason, and then wow, boom, you gotta lay people off or you gotta scale back. So it's a lot of overhead and a lot of investment and a lot of risk to make traditional big budget games now. But because of smartphones, because of free to play, because of digital downloads, because of the indie scene, now you have opportunities to make smaller games. I remember this was years ago even that the founder and owner of Chair Entertainment, Donald Mustard was saying like he told me he's like, well, we're definitely moving to all digital, and this is when they first made what was that game? Was Shadow Complex? Was that their kind of Metroidvania style game?
Yeah.
Um, the that and then they made another underwater shooter. I forgot what that one was called, but
I know what you're talking about. Hyper something, I think.
Yeah, I can't remember it right off the top of my head, but I remember these guys, they used to make console games, and then they're like, we don't want to do that anymore because in the time it takes us to make one console game, that again, you're at the mercy of market conditions, of the what the consumers want at that time. You might not sell well, and that's terrible to after 2 years of hard work, a lot of money and hours being put into something. Or you can make a game in a few months, going digital, right? So I think smaller games are definitely the future. The biggest of the big games are still going to do well. Your Call of Duties and such, the games that companies can afford to invest in, they can afford to put years of work into, and they can afford to put millions of dollars of marketing into. But the future is really uh, smaller downloadable games, especially mobile. You look at industry leaders like China, all the businesses in mobile. You look at the market. My mom will never play a PlayStation 4 game, but she'll play games on her smartphone. So the business is that much bigger when you're looking at the mobile market. So I feel like that's where the future is going. And you see this all the time. You see a lot of developers leaving big studios or AAA studios to go do the independent thing and to work in mobile. So it's definitely clear that that's the future.
I agree there. One of the more common things in mobile games are microtransactions. Do you feel they have a place in the $60 retail games like Dead Space 3, The Crew?
Yeah, I for downloadable content for AAA games, I hate it and like it at the same time. I more hate it than I like it, I think, because if it's a game you're into, like, and you feel like, all right, the base $60 product is good on its own. Like I feel like I got my $60 worth. There's a big whatever single player campaign. There's multiplayer. Great. I love everything about it. And oh, for $10 more, I could get this other stuff to extend the experience beyond what I would have expected. Then that's great. uh, because it's like bonus content that I wasn't expecting, that I wasn't going to get anyways. Now I'm happy to pay for that. I'm happy to get more of this game that I already love. But you can tell a lot of developers don't. They start planning for DLC right from the start. Publishers and developers do, right? They start planning for it, and you just know that there's a lot of that thinking. No one's ever going to admit it, but you know that, okay, well, we're going to hold back some of this stuff. Well, actually, you've seen it, right? We've seen stuff where it's on the disc already and it's just locked for you, right? Until you open it up with DLC. So it's obvious that their money is the thinking behind this, right? Money is the motivation, which is, okay, we feel we could get away with this for the $60 product, and why not make $10 and take this stuff out? Uh, but that all said, I don't like that as a consumer, but I don't mind it terribly, because if that keeps game companies in business, and that means developers can keep their job and studios can stay open because they're figuring out better ways to monetize the product, then all the more power for them. That I think is probably more important than me bitching and complaining about if I spend $10 here or $20 there. It's like, well, this money is going to support a business that I love, right? And if that's what they need to do, then that's what they need to do.
I know, like, I think The Crew, like, you can buy performance parts. I don't know if you've played Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare. I'm, like, currently obsessed with that game.
I played it a little bit, not a lot.
Yeah. But they have microtransactions. They just added in. But what I think is really great about that game in particular is if you buy more coins, you can get more sticker packs, sure. But there's also modes dedicated to things that lock out any additional characters that you could even get from that. Like, I think there's a way to balance it, but
Mhm.
what do you think?
Well, it's tough to say. I don't know about Plants vs Zombies in particular. I haven't. I played it. I played a few levels. I played probably a couple of hours at most, so I never got far enough to where I'm even considering microtransactions.
Right.
Uh, but no one likes free play to win. Like that's an obvious. No consumers like that at all, except the people that are actually willing to pay. I like. I wish more developers would kind of follow like Riot and what League of Legends is doing, for example. Like they seem to have a good system now where, hey, they're making lots of money. their customers are happy to pay, but at the same time, no one feels like they're being cheated if they don't pay. You know,
Yeah.
um, I'm a big fan of what SoulForge is doing, which I don't know if you played SoulForge. It's
No.
a collectible card game. Um, the From the makers of Ascension and Magic the Gathering, and that's a game. I hope my wife doesn't ever hear this, but I spent like $150 in that game. And it's by far the most I've ever. It's a free to play game, but I got so addicted and I love that game. And I've spent $150 to get more stuff in it. Um, but you don't have to. Like I play with a lot of friends. I have a huge group of friends. There's almost 20 of us playing on a daily basis, and we all like it better than Hearthstone. But and most of that group hasn't spent any money in that game whatsoever, and they're still very competitive because the game's very generous with, hey, if you log in, we'll give you silver. If you beat somebody, we'll give you silver. You know, your
Nice.
third win will give you silver. So if you enter the draft tournament, which you can do for free, you can keep all the cards that you draft. So it's it's like I don't mind microtransactions if the alternative is very gamer friendly like that.
Nice. And I hear them talk about it on the Giant Bombcast a lot. I know Drew there's like really big into the card game, so I've heard that one mentioned a couple times. Sounds really fun.
Oh yeah, I think it's an incredible game. I've been playing it for months and can't get enough of it.
Nice. So rolling back a little bit, you departed EGM.